Welcome to the Quest Culture Podcast. Am I ready? Welcome to the Quest Culture Podcast, your place for everything fantasy, sci-fi, horror, all platforms, movies, television, print. Last week, comic books. Today, we're going to be looking at print. I'm one of your hosts for today, Brendon Hamilton. I'm here with my friend, LuDana Jeter, horror aficionado, and my cousin, professor of sociology, Mr. Sheldon Applewhite. He's here. Probably call him the professor. Professor, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Glad
Made it
to
in the
be
rain.
here on this rainy day.
Yeah.
Back in the studio.
That's
Yes.
right. Episode 2 is exciting. We're also joined by a special guest that we have today, entrepreneur, wellness guru, avid bibliophile.
Yes.
Yes, my friend Shen. Shen, thank you for coming and being part of
Thanks
this
for
today.
having me.
So what have you been up to? How you been? I want to hear about. There's a reason why I wanted you to be on here, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, and tell us about Rooted and Well.
So, yeah, just reading a lot, which is normal for me. Doing my wellness things. I have, a deep, passionate interest for wellness. I'm also an herbalist and, love kind of doing things related to wellness in my spare time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Well, tell us about, I'm interested in the herbalist.
Yeah.
aspect.
So I'm a community herbalist. I studied with a master herbalist in Brooklyn as an apprentice, Sacred Vibes Apothecary, which is run by Karen Rose in Brooklyn. And so learned about her a couple of years ago and studied under her in her apprenticeship. Did the first 2 levels of her apprenticeship program. It was very comprehensive. She's a spiritual herbalist, so it covered a lot around kind of the spiritual components of the herbs we learned about, as well as kind of just like the types of plants and kind of the uses for them and, how to find them and to leverage them in different medicines and things like that.
Okay. My mom had a green thumb. And as you might know, Trenton, our parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. Our grandparents were actually farmers. And so growing up, there was a connection to the earth and like the foods that we ate, even though we may not have been aware of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering what your interest in like herbalists is that one of the reasons? And do you feel like that you decided to go into pursuing this? And do you think that there's a connectedness to what you're doing in terms of like our roots in Africa or even in the South of the African diaspora?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I have been interested in the health component of it, and also just like the science of the plants was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And just kind of like I guess pandemic time, I started following more health related people on Instagram for obvious reasons, but then kind of started really honing in on herbalists in particular. And came across Karen Rose and realized that she, her businesses are actually kind of very close to where I live in Brooklyn. And so became a patron and then kind of learned about the apprenticeship program from there. But even just kind of going back, I'm from West Philly originally, but my grandparents have roots in South Carolina. So
You're a student too, right?
Yeah.
okay.
Where they're from.
Right, great. So so just kind of visiting, family members down there, throughout my life and kind of hearing stories from my mother and hearing about visiting her grandmother on the farm and different things like that kind of made me interested in things of that nature, in terms of like the roots perspective. And so that's kind of where I came up with the name of my blog, Rooted and Well. And yeah, just kind of exploring things under that umbrella. I mean, I have other interests too, just to kind of explore under that same umbrella.
That's great. That's really great. So as far as you studying this since the pandemic, it seems like you started really getting into it more since the pandemic. So have you changed? Like, what have you changed as far as your eating habits?
I don't know if I've necessarily changed my eating habits all that much. I mean,
Okay.
I've always been kind of more health minded, in that sense. I just play around with herbs more. I'm kind of making things for friends and, making teas and tinctures for myself, kind of things of that nature.
What's the most popular thing that your friends ask you to make for them?
Well, they just really generally ask me like, oh, I have this, I'm kind of working on this. Like, do you suggest a tea? And sometimes I'm like, well, I can't really responsibly give you a recommendation if I haven't really learned more about, your condition. There's a lot of contraindications if you're taking any medication. So usually like I'll just suggest like things that are really generally safe for everyone and, be like, I think you need, go to a master herbalist or, kind of get a sense of kind of what will conflict with your medications before herbs are very powerful.
Mhm.
And I, want to empower people to kind of learn about them, but also do it safely,
Yeah.
like in a way that won't conflict with anything else you're doing health
Yeah,
wise.
the ailments. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that approach, because oftentimes when you see people who are looking into wellness and they want to go like a natural route, it's either or, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
But if you
mhm.
have like, high blood pressure, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Right.
Like,
There's
this is
certain
not the time to be, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
love the balance and I love that you're talking about responsibility
yeah.
because I think it's important, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's definitely just from the way I was taught, but also just common sense. And,
Mhm.
you don't want to get sued for,
Mhm.
messing with someone.
Mhm.
And I'm not a clinical herbalist,
Mhm.
so, you just want to be responsible when
Sure.
when you're giving out advice to people,
Mhm.
Sure.
especially in that realm.
What's your go-to herb right now? Like, what are you using the most, I guess? Or
There's go-to ones for different reasons. I mean, my favorite all around is nettle.
uh-huh.
Because it's just kind of almost like a herbal multivitamin. It has a lot of minerals in it, and this time of year, it's very refreshing to have it chilled. You
Mhm.
can infuse it for a couple of hours and then strain it and put it in the fridge and have it chilled. But like any kind of herb that I'm kind of feeling, I make it into an iced tea.
Mhm.
I do a lot of like tulsi, which is also called holy basil, and rose as
Mhm.
well. Like that makes a nice iced tea also.
Mhm.
Nice.
For like, stress,
Mhm.
de-stress and calming is, kind of some of the elements for tulsi. And then rose is just, just like a beautiful plant to add, beauty and other, properties as well.
Mhm.
And what was the impetus for you to start to really be looking into getting into herbalism and trying?
Well, everybody needs a hobby. Like, I have a day job. I do something very different in my day to day that is stressful. I work in advertising. So,
Okay.
just looking for ways to, have an interest that I can cultivate outside of my 9 to 5 that interest me and, just kind of looking, in terms of long term health, what can you do to empower yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was a great habit to pick up,
Mhm.
or a great side gig to pick up.
Is there, and I know you want to be careful recommending things to people because you don't really know them personally, but is there like a super herb that everyone should
Super.
have in their diet that I need to run out right now to Whole Foods
Superpowers.
and grab
Like
and just
Popeye or something.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So there's try eating a certain amount of spinach.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of us could use like nervous system support and calming, like,
Mhm.
living in New York. It can be very
The umbrella
stressful.
lady today.
Yes, fighting with people on the streets and, So a lot of times, a very good nutritive kind of calming thing to have is oat straw, which is like just it's a component of oat, and you can, have that as a cold infusion. And an infusion is just basically like, when you just have like maybe like a cup of tea, you'll just let it steep for a few hours. So with
Mhm.
with an infusion, you'll let it steep for like a few minutes, but with an infusion, you'll let it steep for a few hours.
Mhm.
And then you can do that cold. So it's a little bit slimy in consistency, but you get kind of used to it. But it's something that's very easy.
You got me right
No,
there. I was all into it until you said
It's just
slimy.
I mean, just being honest. But so that's something that's very easy to kind of, you can get that from the store and have that and it's very kind of safe generally for most folks.
What is your favorite Brooklyn store to get some of these herbs?
Oh, there's so many,
Yeah.
apothecaries all over Brooklyn and, just New York in general.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm kind of blanking on specific ones other than my teachers.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's plenty of places and also online.
Mhm.
If maybe you don't live near an apothecary or a place of that nature, you can also get a lot of things even from like the grocery stores a lot, like in terms of like loose teas and things
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
that. They're more available,
Okay.
now as well.
If anybody knows any apothecaries that's in the listening right now, drop them in the comments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Make
for
some
sure.
recommendations and
Especially in
Shen will
Manhattan
definitely
and
make some
other
recommendations.
Yeah.
neighborhoods in the Bronx and
Absolutely.
stuff like that.
I'm picturing apothecary. I'm picturing you because my head. I'm picturing you like a wizard, like a
Yeah.
sorceress, putting together these.
Well, you
these
just
spells.
you can play around with things.
I mean,
When I go
Double,
home as
double.
well to Philly, there's a really cute spot I like called Dope Botanicals.
That's what it's called. Dope. Dope.
Yeah, it's called Dope
pretty
Botanicals, and
shout out to Dope.
they
Botanicals.
really
In West
great
Philly.
sisters there. And I think that it's actually literally run by sisters, but they're
Right.
related. Yeah.
Dope botanical.
I think there's something really powerful and really almost like, we want to, today we call it supernatural, whatever. But when, our ancestors use these herbs and stuff, right? Especially in the face of like adversity, like if you came from a background of like slavery or whatever, like
Mhm.
oftentimes you didn't have modern medicines. You probably
Right.
didn't even have penicillin, even though it might have been available or whatever. So like people did things,
Yeah.
right?
That
They
herbs
they
were the medicine.
right.
Yeah.
They
You know?
pulled from the
From the
earth,
earth.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it was effective for a long time.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
like I think the idea of going back to it and really like revisiting or like, is really powerful. I always think about like, did your mom used to like I'm sure she did. I don't even know what I'm asking, but Centipod.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, right?
Yeah.
Centipod is like this. You know what I mean, right? Like they're like these. So a leaf of some kind or
Okay.
whatever, and you boil it,
Mhm.
and it acts as a for digestive.
So many
Your
different things.
digestive
Okay.
system is
Yeah.
almost
So
like
you would.
to do it as a purge or whatever. So like if you've been eating a lot of like
Oh.
your mom, or if you weren't feeling well for some reason,
It
stomachache
just
or
helps you
whatever,
cleanse your system. And
it'll cleanse
Okay.
your system. But now it's been, years ago I saw that it'd been converted. There's a drug called Senna,
Mhm.
an over-the-counter drug, and they got it
Yeah,
from
it's derived
from that,
plant.
yeah,
Yeah.
from
That's
Zenapod.
amazing.
There's so many
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals that are derived from plants.
Right.
Yeah.
If you research that a little
And
bit.
people are looking for these alternative
Right.
remedies,
Yeah.
right? There's definitely a market for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there should be.
Yeah, for sure.
These meds are just, slowly killing
Yeah.
us.
If you can get ahead of things and
Yeah.
be more preventative,
Mhm.
that's really
That is the key.
ideal.
We
Yeah.
don't
That is
we
the
don't
key.
talk enough about preventative medicine.
We
in this
don't.
country,
Yeah.
At all.
preventative
all.
health.
And it's
That's a whole different. That's a whole nother podcast that we could do.
oh yeah,
for sure.
100%.
Absolutely. One of the other reasons why I wanted to have you on was because I did notice, obviously I follow you, and you post a lot about the books you're reading,
Yeah.
a lot. And I've looked at a fair number of them, and a lot of them do tend to be, at least from my understanding, sci-fi, fantasy, entertainment, Afrofuturism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking through, and I looked up a lot of these authors, and there's the ones that I recognize that we all know, Octavia Butler,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but then there are so many that, like this one, that I didn't know about.
Mhm.
And I'm actually embarrassed that I didn't know about. So I thought to myself, I said, as we're looking at the guests we could have on this show,
Mm-hmm.
you're one of the first things that came to my mind, because I'm like, I would love to get Shen on here and talk about
Mhm.
some of these books,
Yeah.
because I'd love for you to share with us and our listeners the passion you have for these books, what brought you into them,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're missing by not reading them.
Yeah.
This book here that we're going to talk about, Binti, was written by the author went to UB.
Mhm.
and
Oh
was
wow, I
associate
didn't know that.
professor of writing.
Yeah,
So
Oh wow.
that's my alma mater. I went to UB. So that's
Oh,
crazy
great. Okay.
that
Oh,
yeah.
that I didn't know that.
that's,
So
that is.
Yeah.
so even more
You should
so
that they would-
I am
that-
embarrassed
So,
So-
Or that
the
the institution didn't
or
do more
to
public
Yeah.
to
publicize it.
publicize it.
Right.
So she's there now at UB.
Yeah.
So please.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big reader, and I read everything, in terms of genres. I read across the board. But I've always really had a penchant for sci-fi and fantasy, not even just books, but just like media, like film and, things of that nature too. I grew up, I was an only child, so I watched, a lot of TV with my parents. So I watched Star Trek with my dad, and, he was
I'm an only
super,
child.
he was super into like sci-fi stuff
Yes,
as
Dad.
well. So definitely kind of, cultivated that interest from a film perspective, and then kind of sought it out in books too. And even though I read a lot, there wasn't necessarily so much available, when I was growing up in terms of, things that I could relate to, like I could see myself. Like one book I really remember loving was A Wrinkle in Time when I was a child. And even though that's a really good book, and then I know they had the film adaptation, but that was like well into adulthood by that time that came out. So, it was, there were definitely really great, memorable books, but I think there's just so much more available now, like not even just across all age spans. Like I personally really enjoy reading YA, fantasy, and sci-fi, but I read adult as well, and, just across the board. But I just think there's just more available than I feel like was around earlier. Like, there's definitely notable writers that I grew up knowing about, like Octavia Butler, but I really, there's quite a few I still need to read in her back catalog, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Prolific. But yeah, there's just definitely a lot more, especially from, authors of color, Black women. And it's really fun to kind of just read about the different worlds that people conceive in their minds.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. Like authors like N.K. Jemisin, and, just like her work is just so unique and unparalleled, really, in the genre, in my opinion. So it's really cool to kind of see other writers, kind of go places that I never really conceived and really kind of thought of. And I think of myself as being imaginative. So it's just really fun, in terms of, decompressing and,
And
kind
delving into these worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you say about world building, because, if you've read a lot of these genres or whatever, and I'm a big, I was a middle school teacher, and so I'm a big YA kind of fan, right? There's a lot of really creative stuff that comes out of there, especially, stuff about, the end of the world, despotism kind of stuff, whatever, Hunger Games, but, one of the things that I think is like so wonderful is that there are so many like different like authors out there that are doing really amazing, creative, wonderful stuff, right? Even more so than when we were coming up. So like, maybe can you talk about some of the things or some of the authors that you really love, and maybe particularly the ones who have an Afro futuristic, bent? And maybe just give a definition to our audience.
Yeah,
We can't assume
so a
that.
couple things. Define YA for anybody that doesn't know.
Right.
For me.
So YA is young adult literature,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Young adult.
And it can be, I mean, you're from, so like the Harry Potter stuff was all young
Yeah,
adult stuff, right?
That's definitely young adult.
Hunger Games stuff. There's a lot of it, right? And dealing with really mature issues, right? And I think that's what makes it so unique, because a lot of these kids are like coming of age, and they're putting on the table a lot of themes that, you should start thinking about, like right and wrong, or like, stuff around gender, or like kind of person you want to be in the world, or you want to be kind, do you want to have integrity, I think a lot of these themes kind of come out in these books, right?
Yeah.
So they're really life lessons.
Yeah.
Right? One of the things that I really did love about the Harry Potter series is like the life lessons that, it's strange that the person who, gave all these life lessons is kind of like a transphobe, but there are a lot of, but there are a lot of,
That clock is right.
right? But there are a lot of lessons in those books,
Right.
which is the
Yeah.
sad part about it, because she
Yeah.
gets so many things,
Yeah.
and there's some parts that
Yeah.
she doesn't. But
Well,
maybe, so that's what YA is.
Mhm.
so it's
Afrofuturism.
coming of age. We just changed it to YA. I know it as
Yeah.
coming of age.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
And then the
Afrofuturism.
Afrofuturism is like imagining a different world
Mm-hmm.
where through technology, where the experiences of people from the African diaspora look different, or the experience is different. Is that a good
Yeah, I would
definition?
say yes. I would couch Binti, the book that we're going to talk about, is Afrofuturistic.
Yes.
Definitely. You know, in terms of other writers or books that come to mind, she's really kind of the first. I mean, N.K. Jemisin as well. She would be like at the top of the list to me in terms of Afrofuturism and just like building worlds where, you know, we exist.
Where we're the center, right?
Yes.
Like we're central to the
Imagine
story.
that.
Yeah.
What's a good book that you would recommend by her that we?
I mean, I think probably her most approachable books are like the most recent ones, The World We Make, and I forget the name. It's a duology, and it's actually set in New York, and it's like a little bit of dystopian, but it's also just kind of couched around the different boroughs of New York, you know, kind of are personified as people, and, you know, there's kind of, you know, something they have to overcome together. They have to come together to overcome something and fight an evil. So, you know, it's interesting in that sense. But she has other books that are, you know, Nebula winners that are, you know, very kind of, you know, just things you don't necessarily see other authors doing. So,
And remind the audience what a Nebula winner is.
so that's just like a very coveted award for science fiction. So a lot of the notable authors in that space, you know, are nominated for that or receive that award.
So I was doing some research on Afrofuturistic authors and stuff like that, and you know, it's like I first came across the idea around Afrofuturism maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, right? They had an exhibit at the Studio Museum of Harlem on Afrofuturism, and it was like there were so many things that I knew that I didn't realize I knew, right? And so for many people, even if you don't know what Afrofuturism is, if like you kind of delve and think about the themes of it, you know a lot more than think you know, right? So for example, in Parliament, right?
Yeah.
And George Clinton, it's like that's all Afrofuturism, right?
Oh,
like so many.
Remember I said LaBelle?
Yeah,
Remember I had
LaBelle,
that?
absolutely, right? Nona Hendrix, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And even but Sylvester too, I think,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of Afrofuturistic elements and a lot of music, current and past. Absolutely.
But one of the things that when I was looking at this list, I didn't realize is like I've read a couple of Colston Whitehead books, right? Like I've read Nickel Boys and there was another one, Harlem Shuffle. I read those two, but I didn't realize he has a few sci-fi books.
He does.
Right?
They're on my list to read. Yeah.
So have any of you read?
No.
Yeah. They're. I mean, I pulled up, and we can make this available in the comments. But well, you guys, I'll give you the name of it. Yeah, continue the conversation. But
yeah. So, you know, I do like science fiction, but I also like fantasy as well, and kind of reading fantasy that is derived from, you know, African diaspora in some way. Because I mean, I read a lot of different. I mean, Game of Thrones is fantasy. I read the first few books of that, and then I kind of just gave up because they're just really thick.
I mean, you hardcore. If you those. I mean. Yeah.
Are they still going
Lots
on?
of characters too.
Yeah,
he's still writing a book.
Still writing, yeah. And I was just like, I can't commit to this. Yeah.
It's a big commitment. You know? Even watching the reels and they're talking about the characters, you're like, holy shit, like this is way more.
Yeah, it's very involved.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, there's definitely all types of you know, books in that fantasy genre that you can kind of go to that, you know, if you're looking for something in that vein, but I was just looking for something that had, you know, people of color in it, you know, and not just kind of like blind casting by default when they like adapt it for television, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just, you know, saying like, so yeah, so I kind of sought that out, you know, as well in books, you know, Ray Bearer is an example of that. Children of Blood and Bone
Oh yeah,
is another one
which
that
they're
comes to mind.
they're adapting to a movie. I just sent you
Yeah,
guys.
you
Send us.
sent it to
Yeah,
us.
it's going to be
Yeah.
adapted to a movie by again by an author, a director of color. I'm trying to pull it up so I can share it with you guys right now. But I think that's great. I read the first book. I think I read the second one. Really great book into like mysticism and like supernatural power and stuff like that, based in like African characters, storyline. Really wonderful.
I hope it's going to be done right, because a lot
Yeah.
of people had an issue with Octavia Butler's the series that they had. I didn't
Yes.
watch it because
Which
people
one?
told me not to watch
It was
I'm sorry, what
very
was the name of
different.
watched it.
Kindred.
Yeah.
Kindred.
It was
which
very
was such a
different
great book.
from the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a great book, and I just heard the series was just
It was a departure.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
big departure, and I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure why, because the source material is so good.
it's so
Mhm.
good.
But-
You would think that it would have been so simple.
Well, they don't want to paint. Well, let's hear your take on why they adapted it the way that they did, and then I'll
I
give
mean,
you
I
mine.
don't, I think they probably made it more digestible for, a larger audience and kind of tone down aspects of the original storyline. I mean, that's my guess. I mean,
Wow.
I mean, some of it is an indictment on white people. That's the
Yeah.
truth, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, you've all read it, right? So we can talk
Mhm.
about it.
Read it?
When your
Did you
grandson
read it?
meets your future self and
love
tries
it.
to rape
Yes.
you,
No, no.
like that's that's some serious shit. right?
Yeah.
Like you can't wash around that, right?
Right.
Your grandmother comes in the past to take care of you,
Mhm.
and you become an adult and try to rape her. That's some serious shit.
Kindred.
Kindred.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Read it.
I did not.
Oh wow.
It's a good one. It's
Yeah.
It's really a good. one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay.
You need to read it.
So it's like
So many
really,
now.
it's really
Mhm.
watered down, right? It's like it's attacking the institution of slavery on some levels,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the parts people
Yes,
play
it
in it,
did.
right? On a
It
very
did.
familial,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? Like,
And the time travel aspect comes in it,
Mhm.
For people who are kind of interested in, that aspect of it. But yeah, I didn't finish the television series.
Okay.
I did, but it was
did.
not worth it, I think.
Yeah. And I don't think it got renewed.
Right. I don't know why it was like a series.
Yeah. Why didn't they make that a movie? It should have been a movie to me if they were gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like if they had faith in it, they would have made it a movie.
Oh. Okay.
You know, that's what that's my
So then
impression of things like that.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like, who are they making it for? Which
Yeah. Well,
audience are they
that's-
making
well,
it for?
Who owns it?
Because are they making it for us? They're not making it for us,
No.
right?
I mean, I think they're kind of making it for us just to say they make it for us.
All right.
You
Mm.
know?
Because I'm like, I like the truth. I'm into like,
Well,
at least
I
the
mean-
truth in fiction, right?
I don't really have a problem with like departing from source material necessarily if it's done in a way that is compelling or bringing something that I want to see. So,
Right.
but that's really challenging to do sometimes.
I mean, what about the author too, though, right? And I'm not sure. I mean, by then she passed away. I
Yeah.
don't know
Passed
how
away,
she
yeah.
sold the rights or what. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like
I don't know.
being authentic to like the author, and I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
I'd have to read about it or
Mhm.
whatever. But
Mhm. She passed away several
yeah.
in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
So I think, I mean, I'd be curious to know, whose vision it was, and
Yeah.
if they followed her
Yeah.
kind of pathway in terms of how she thought about her characters in her books.
Now, are they making another series with Octavia's material, like one of the parable? Or
I
did they
think
already
so.
do that?
I heard that potentially.
That was a while ago. I
that
wonder- I
that
wonder if
was
it's been
not
shelved
recent. Yeah,
after this
Possibly.
didn't do well.
I don't know. I haven't really kept up with kind of where that was going.
Yeah, if any of
Yeah.
you out there know or have some information, put
Please
it in the
let us know.
comments, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
That's so funny because that was going to be the icebreaker question. I was going to ask if there was a movie or a television show that's based on a book or something in print that you have seen that you thought wasn't made well and that you would like them to revisit again, or if there was something that you have never seen that you've read that you think would be a great movie or television.
That's such a hard question.
Oh,
That's hard.
that's a hard
That's such
question.
a hard question.
Yeah.
That would be something I couldn't think of right away, but I know there is something
Yeah.
that I've read of like, wow, this would be.
It can be anything. Like for me, I thought of Spawn.
Oh. But wasn't that a movie though?
Yeah, I
It
thought
was.
it was a movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
but it
saying
was
needs to be
it was done poorly.
I
so
believe
like-
it was done for.
That's
we,
fair.
we could go on forever
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's
Oh,
been
yeah.
made. Yeah, we just talked about one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just talked about one, so it's just funny you guys went there anyway.
Oh, I have one.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not gonna like it.
It's all right.
I Am Legend.
Really?
Oh.
You know why?
That's a big
Why?
attraction in the
Because-
books for sure.
Richard Matheson is one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have read so many of his-
Really?
I love him. I love how he writes. The first book I read by him was Stir of Echoes. And
Okay.
after that, I was just caught. I mean, he's been writing.
I
since
didn't
the
realize
40s
he
and the-
wrote that.
He wrote What Dreams May Come. He wrote The Incredible Shrinking Man. He
Mm.
wrote I Am Legend. There's so many that were turned into movies
Mhm.
that he's made.
Okay.
So I love his writing. So
Because that's Afrofuturistic, right? I am.
no,
It's
No,
science
no,
no,
fiction.
it wasn't Afro anything.
No, it was
No, the Denzel Washington movie. I thought it was. No.
no.
Okay.
no,
No,
It-
it's-
you talking about the?
Is that
it's
the one
Will
with the
Smith.
dog?
No,
Yeah.
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 He's
But it
he's
was
wandering around.
Right, and he's the last.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it.
But
Last
it was
man
it
on
was
the planet.
Yeah,
near-
I was off of Will Smith by that.
Oh.
That's well
No.
before the curve. You know what I mean?
The
Like,
book was very it wasn't it was very rural in the book.
okay.
Like he was living in a cabin. He wasn't living in New York City. So
Mhm.
let's just start there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But
And the ending was better.
in the end, right, the ending. Oh, you read it?
Yes.
I didn't know
I
that.
love that book. The ending was better.
Yeah, the ending. was
Okay, I
actually
gotta read it
better. You
then.
have to read it.
Okay.
You have to read it. Yeah. So yes, I thought of
So, yeah,
one.
I knew you would. Knew you
Well,
would.
the only one that really is coming to mind for me, there was this YA fantasy book called Legendborn, and it's currently a duology, but the author is writing more installments. But I heard that was being adapted, I think. But it's kind of like a King author kind of take on that particular story, that centers around a young woman who is doing this like pre-college program at the University of North Carolina. And she ends up somehow becoming affiliated with this, organization that has ties to King Arthur. And then, it kind of goes from there. There's just a lot in that story. So if they did it right, it could be compelling. Also, keeping in mind that I don't know how it ends because the author is still writing
Writing.
for that series. Yeah.
What's the setting? Is it like a traditional
It's-
European?
It's like I would say dark academia.
Dark academia.
Yeah, like it's set at a university.
define
predomin-
dark academia. Just
So that's just kind of a subgenre of fantasy.
Yeah.
Which I'd never heard before until now. I'm in the academia, and I never heard that term, but it makes so much sense to me now.
Mhm.
Because that show, what was it on Amazon, where the woman was at the university, but the university was all messed up? Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about on Amazon?
don't
Was
think
it
so.
Us or
them?
what's that series? Them on Amazon?
Is it them, the detective?
Yeah, like the
Oh,
first,
okay.
the first installment, she was like the character was at a university.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
these really crazy things were happening.
Yeah,
at the
it's
university.
a very popular kind of subgenre of fantasy. Like The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo is one that's like very popular
Mhm.
that I think of. I guess also like the Atlas Six
Mhm.
would be by Olivia Blake, would also be considered dark academia. But in that sense, for this book, it does have darker tones, but it is still YA. The protagonist is like 16 or 17 or something like that. So
What's your favorite fantasy film?
Mm.
If you don't have one, it's fine. I'm just kidding.
I really liked The Labyrinth.
That is a classic.
It's a
People
classic.
really love.
Yeah.
Here we go with
Yeah.
the
People love
classics.
that.
David Bowie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of my best friend's favorite.
Yeah. That's a great
movies
movie.
as well.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. You got to see it.
I'm
Just-
not a big fantasy.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
What about fantasy television favorite
Fantasy television.
series or whatever? Because I'm going to name one.
Okay.
I mean, wouldn't that be Game of Thrones? That's
No,
considered
I mean,
fantasy?
I love
Part of
Technically.
fantasy?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it's got
that's
dragons and
favorite.
stuff,
I'm
that's
not even
nice.
putting that in there,
Yeah.
but I love The Magicians. Did you guys
Oh,
ever
that
watch
was a good show.
I didn't watch
that
it.
Would,
I
would watch
love
that
that
show.
show.
I would count
It
that
was
as Dark
so-
Academia.
Yeah.
Was it-
Oh,
was it
yeah.
good?
Okay.
Yeah.
Really
So
great.
that's considered Dark Academia.
Yeah.
That
and
makes sense to me, too.
Yeah, and that was
Oh.
based on a book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lev Grossman.
Yeah, I have a friend who
That was
loved
great.
series.
That was a
Yeah.
good. That was
It
a good show.
It was a
Really?
good show, yeah.
Mhm.
See, now if you thought it was good, I might have to go.
Yeah. And I read. I think it was more than one book, but I only read the first one.
I
Yeah.
have to go take a look. I have to go rewatch that.
Mhm.
It was always on my radar. I just never got a chance to watch
It
it.
got better.
By the
as
time I thought
season
about it,
went-
it was so many
Yeah.
seasons. I was like, I'm never gonna catch up to this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was good.
You're going to say The Witcher, aren't you?
No. I love that game. I love the game, and I know everybody loves Henry Cavill, but I think he's so cheesy in this role. I think he's,
No,
and I know
it's
people love
so
him.
cheesy, but I'm not gonna lie. I watched it. I watched the first season. I
What is
didn't
this,
watch
Witcher?
it after that.
The Witcher.
Okay, yeah.
It's enjoyable. I mean, I love the game, and I love monsters and
It
creature
was cheesy.
Yeah.
creature hunters and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and casting spells. I love that stuff. So I
Yeah.
do love that aspect of it. But sometimes I watch it, I'm like, oh, it's so cheesy. It's so cheesy.
It got a little better toward the end of the first season that I saw, but I don't know. I don't know.
People love him. I
Wait,
think that's
so what were
I
you
think
gonna
that's the
say
draw.
before I
Yeah.
put that in.
What's
What
before-
were you going to say?
fantasy?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's always been in terms of fantasy films. Lord of the Rings is, I think that the original trilogy, I think is
Yeah.
amazing.
Really
I
wonderful.
think
That's
Peter
really
Jackson,
Really
good. That's-
wonderful.
Yeah.
that is just a remarkable feat of,
Mhm.
of production.
Really well done.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree.
And especially for Lord of the Rings, which is an incredibly difficult
Yeah.
books
Mhm.
to try to
Yeah.
adapt,
Yeah.
to pick the right sections, to create that narrative, and then to put it up on film and have it be that convincing and have
And so
people try to
wondrous.
do it.
So wondrous and so beautiful,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You are immersed in that world, and you feel
It
like it
is
is a
very
real thing that
immersive.
could have possibly happened. So for me, that's definitely one of the
Oh, that's
one
cool.
of the
Okay.
greats
Yeah.
for me.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings
I don't.
Series?
fantasy series.
Yeah.
I don't think I have one
Okay.
in terms of fantasy like that. You know, like I guess that would be like Lord of the Rings, or that would be takes place in a certain setting. Most of my sci-fi or fantasy television shows that I like are more contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything on television right now.
Yeah. I can't think of anything currently, you know.
I had my hopes up for the Amazon Lord of the Rings show.
Oh,
I haven't even gotten through two
I
episodes.
couldn't get through. Me either.
Yeah, couldn't
I
get into
tried.
it. No.
I tried.
I could
I
not get
tried.
into. And then
So Amazon made Lord of the Rings over?
No, it's
No.
like a spin-off or
It's like a prequel.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a prequel.
I really wanted to.
And they
like
sunk a bunch of money into it.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of money into it. So I was hoping it was going to be good.
Yeah.
And I think they won some Emmys too, right? Or no?
They did, but I don't know if that's going to be enough because I don't think people are watching.
People were watching it. Yeah, that's fair. I tried to watch Wheel of Time,
Me too.
and
Something about it, right? What is it?
yeah, I don't know. It just didn't all. I just didn't feel compelled to watch the second season.
I feel like I don't believe some of the characters. I feel like some people are miscast.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of different factors that I feel like. I'll still go back and try to watch some of it, but it's not like on the top of my list.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because I love, as you stated, when we were younger, this stuff was just in print. Maybe you might see a cheesy thing on TV, a special,
Like the cartoon,
or
the
movies.
Hobbit
You might see
cartoon.
Labyrinth, the Hobbit cartoon.
Yeah.
Which I love, by the
Right.
way.
Yeah.
Still.
Never Ending Story.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
that's another favorite.
like they're those things that are out there, but they weren't. You couldn't turn on the TV and have the options of watching a Dungeons and Dragons movie. That was not a thing. Dungeons and Dragons. They need to make a good Dungeons and Dragons movie. Now, it took me back.
I didn't watch
Did they
that
just
either.
make a Dungeons
They
and Dragon
did.
movie?
They said they did. I watched it.
I was gonna.
Because
that
I
was
heard
something-
reviews about it. They kind of said it was fun and
It was
know,
everything, but
whatever.
not a Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I was
don't-
gonna
like,
get
I
around
love-
to it eventually, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, watch it because it is fun to watch,
Mhm.
but it is by no means only in name is it Dungeons.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fair.
I wish that Peter Jackson would just do it. I wish that they would just pay Peter Jackson to make a good Dungeons and Dragons movie, because that movie, if they do it well and they treat it with seriousness, and they treat it with they have people that produce it that actually care about it.
I just love
That's going to be $1 billion. That's going to be
I
$1
love the
billion
cartoon. I'm sorry, I
movie.
did.
Yeah.
The cartoon still
I love the
holds
cartoon.
up. Yes,
I loved it.
it captures the magic of
I just
being of
loved
Dungeons
it.
and Dragons.
My
and
friends,
casting
we would
spells
play Dungeons and Dragons. We beat a different characters from the show. Like
Yeah.
we loved it.
Yeah, it was. I used to spend weekends. You already know.
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
whole summers. Binti, why did you recommend that we take a look at this book?
So I thought I was mindful of people's time. I wanted to pick a small book that would pack a punch, and I kind of thought that book would do it. And also, like, you can just stop there. You can just continue reading the bind up of the novellas. But I just thought the world building was just like very good for such a tiny novella.
Right?
Yeah, like she packed a lot in there. And then also like room to grow and kind of see where the story will go. And you know, piques your curiosity to kind of like see more.
And you continued, right? You read beyond this book already.
I have not. I have them,
just
but I'm
have
going
them.
to read home next. I can't
Oh,
wait.
that's
amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking
amazing.
forward to it.
Yeah.
So do you guys want to give us a little summary or a little synopsis of the
Well,
book?
I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
people to read
Maybe
it,
pull it
but-
pull the audience in a little bit.
Well,
I would say that
Binti
there's Afrofuturistic elements. You know, there's elements from an indigenous African culture that I really kind of like pulled through with the main character. There's other species that are referenced that,
Right.
you know, is kind of like I really would be curious to see how like physically they came to life. So yeah, I don't want to say too much either, but I will say that. Yeah.
But it is a good
I
recommend.
was intrigued by the world building in that
Yeah.
with so few words,
Yeah.
there was so much communicated. And
Yeah.
you, while she does paint a picture for you, especially of these life forms,
Right.
I don't want to
Yeah.
get into it
Don't
too
want to
much,
get into it.
But-
Yeah.
but it forces you to imagine what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because there's so little description that, depending on the story, my conception of what these beings looked like changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I thought that itself was fascinating.
Yeah.
And as I'm reading it, that's where I thought about that opening question. I would love to see this adaptation. I would love to see this in a television or even in
Yeah.
an animated form.
I agree.
Because it would be fascinating to watch some
Yeah.
some of the like bio
That's a
organic
great idea.
the elements of it of the ship.
Yep.
Well,
The
Right.
description of the ship that they're traveling in.
Yeah.
you know, I
Um,
think that some of these, the best films or the best books, you can actually see or really imagine in your mind
Mm-hmm.
how it would look, right? Like, and it sounded like I felt the same way about the descriptions in Binti as well. It's like, even when you think about like for like the Harry Potter stuff, what you said about the Lord of the Rings stuff, like when you visualize it in your mind and then
Yeah.
when you see it on screen, it's like that is something really powerful to do as an author, is to get people to really visualize what your world looks like, that world
Yeah.
building that you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a unique quality for a writer, I think, and
Absolutely.
even more so for somebody to be able to create that vision and get it right on the screen,
Absolutely.
like Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
Like Peter Jackson.
I would say like Shadow and Bone. I don't know if you watched that. I read the original trilogy for that book, and it did it well in terms of the world kind of really, in a lot of ways, kind of, you know, what I saw in my imagination definitely did come through a lot, and what you ended up seeing in the adaptation. And that show is concluded in terms of there's no more seasons, but
On Netflix, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I
yeah,
started it.
yeah.
That's really cool. I don't want to talk about the end.
No,
I know.
Um,
just read it. I just
Just-
would just
Yeah.
encourage people to like, if you're curious about it, it's under 100 pages.
Mhm.
You can read it in a day easily.
Mhm.
Just give it a try.
Just point it out.
Yeah.
Binti.
Binti.
Right.
We'll put a link. We'll put a link in the comments.
And how do you say your last name? Nettie
Okafor.
Okafor, right?
Yeah.
UB
UB professor.
Right.
Yes.
And it's a Nebula Award
and
winner.
a Nebula Award winner.
Nebula Award winner.
Binti. Go get.
And I do think we're gonna try to spotlight Black authors when we're talking about books.
1,000%.
One of my former colleagues, she's a professor at my college. Her name is Zetta Elliott. She writes YA books featuring people of color. Right. When I give books to my friends' kids, those are the first books I get because
Good.
she left the academy to write books full time, and it's worked out for her. Her books are brilliant. They're great. I give them to my nieces and nephews.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book by her, or the book?
She has a whole series about. Don't get me to line the name of the title. It's the dragon series though, where
all right,
where this little kid has a pet dragons, but she has a ton of books out there that are really amazing.
That's
Great illustration. Really cool stuff.
Cool.
Shout out to Zetta
I'll keep
Elliott.
that in mind when buying books for little ones.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the comments for that too.
Absolutely.
You guys are getting all the stuff. All the stuff in the
all
comments.
the good stuff.
All the good stuff in the comments. The last thing with Binti again, because again, I don't want to give away too much, but I just love how how African culture was so pivotal to the story. So not just a passive thing that happens to be an element of her existence, but a functional part of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating stuff. And
it made me curious to kind
we
of
need to
do
keep
some
doing that.
research, to learn more about
I know exactly
the
what you're
culture she
talking about,
pulled from.
especially because you're an herbalist too. So I know exactly what you're talking about, what you were interested
Yeah.
in with this main character.
No, it's powerful. Just like when the source material makes you want to go and look up more information about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a really powerful
Yeah.
thing.
Who else would you recommend? So if I'm going to continue to read the.
Oh, you should have
compendium.
gotten the
I'm
one
actually
that I
get the
did.
one you got. That's all right.
Yeah.
I'll get it.
Oh, let me show
You can, there's just like a bind up of
all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Because I have that one too. I
anthology.
just didn't
Yes.
bring it today. Yes, that's the one I have.
Oh,
There's 4 books in here, Binti books, all of
Mm-hmm.
them. Even it says complete trilogy plus a new Binti story.
that's excellent.
Yeah.
I'm on.
And one of my friends told me about this author that, she's fairly prolific. She's written other things as well. So,
We're gonna have to look into that and see. So, give us one more author we might want to look into. You don't have to name a book, but just some, or if there's a book that comes to your mind, something specific, something different from Binti, but because this one is more Afrofuturist. What about
yeah.
something that's pure fantasy,
Fantasy.
dragons or beasties and hunters and spellcasters, and anything like that. Like for anybody that's into like Lord of the Rings and that sort of stuff.
I say Ray Bear.
Ray Bear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And let's see.
Ray Bear. Okay.
There was a book. It's definitely YA. Like the recommendations that are coming to mind for me are YA. But there was a book I enjoyed, and I did do it on audio. It was called Skin of the Sea, and it was derived. The story was derived from the Orishas, and particularly the ones that ruled under the water, and they had like. Kind of want to say helpers that would kind of basically turn into mermaids, and one of them rescued like a human from a slave ship, and she was going to get in trouble for it, because they weren't supposed to do that, and so like a story kind of unraveled from there. And it's a duology.
What's the name of
Why
it
does that
again?
sound
Because I feel like
familiar?
I've heard about
I
this. Yeah.
Skin of the Sea,
Okay. Did I
Skin of
write
the
it
Sea.
Is
down?
this a current book or has it been out for a while?
like a couple years. It's
Oh,
not that old.
okay.
Yeah, I've heard of this
Yeah.
before. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And I just bought it because I just randomly saw it in a bookstore. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cover. I'll just get it. But then actually, it's good. And it's a 2-book series, so it's not, like multi-book type of thing.
Mhm.
And like as I said, I did it on audio. So
Yeah. Do you still go to bookstores a lot?
I do.
Is that your thing? What's your favorite in New York to go to?
I mean, I go all over. Like I go to McNally Jackson,
Mhm.
Greenlight.
Or you go to the Green Light in,
You're a
Fort Greene?
true book
Yeah.
lover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where else do I go? I go to Barnes and Noble. There's like a little cute one. It's like called Book Club, and it's like a bookstore and a cafe.
Oh, nice. That's in Brooklyn.
No, that's in Manhattan.
Okay.
And yeah, there's just some random small ones that I
I love small.
don't even necessarily know the names of.
Mhm.
Right.
There's a nice independent one called Taylor Books. That's kind of not too far from me in Brooklyn. But yeah, there's just so many to visit. I visit independent, I visit the big ones. If there's books, then I'm probably gonna go. Now, even though I do love to go to bookstores a lot, I'm very kind of choosy with what I purchase just because of space limitations. Like
Mhm.
I'd love to buy all the books that I love,
Mhm.
but we live in New York City, so
Mhm.
that's not realistic necessarily. So if I do quite a bit of borrowing from the library, and if I read something that I feel like I'm going to revisit, then I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. I use the library like a crazy person. I really do. Like
That is so cool.
it's the
We should
greatest
get back into
Yeah.
the
Bookstores,
greatest
Yeah.
libraries are so
resource
Right.
in the city
Yeah.
that's still free.
Yeah.
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 Great.
You get
And
lost
it's-
in there.
It's important to support them.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the New York ones are having like budget cuts.
Budgetary
and-
problems.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is
Which is
unfortunate.
Crazy. Just plenty of money for that.
I mean,
Of
yeah,
course, there's plenty of money.
that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
And
But
then I heard that
yeah.
there's only one bookstore in the Bronx now, and they're trying to close it down.
I believe it.
oh,
Mm.
I believe it.
One.
It's by design.
Support
Bronx
your
is huge.
bookstores, people. We got to
Exactly.
support our
Gotta support
bookstores
your
for sure.
bookstores.
One of the main reasons why I thought this would be it'd be great to have you on here too, is because I think it's since 2023, Florida's banned 6,000 books. Texas has banned somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 books.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania has banned almost 1,000 books. Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and there's all kinds of pushback online.
mm-hmm.
And you've seen in the media as well about quote unquote what is woke and what is not, and woke literature and
Mhm.
pushing back. We all know what woke is code for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
But
in my opinion, I'm
liberation.
not going to speak for you guys. Yeah.
Freedom, liberation.
So I think it's important that we put these particular stories out there about these authors because our people need to stand up and fight for these.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
just
also the notion-
a list of some of the books that are now banned that
Okay.
I've read. Lord of the Flies, Color Purple.
Oh,
Are you kidding me?
What?
1984.
I don't even
Is there no irony? They're banning 1984.
yeah.
I'm looking for Fahrenheit 451. I wonder if it's on the list. These are books that are in 2024 are being banned. Catcher in the Rye,
Mm.
Oh yeah, Catcher
Lord
in
of the
Rye.
Flies.
Yep.
These are The Giver. These are To Kill a Mockingbird. These are woke.
What's the
Any
Giver?
Toni
Such a-
Morrison
Wow.
on there?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. You Ta-Nehisi Coates
Mm-hmm.
on the
Yeah,
list.
Ta-Nehisi Coates. Yeah.
The
Mhm.
1619's on the list.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Yeah, this is stuff that's happening. I'm not sure if
You know,
you're paying attention.
It's happening, but like we have to kind of pay attention in a very special way.
Yeah.
You got to have your kids reading, man. I'm sorry. You know, it's like
You do.
it's up to parents to have their kids reading.
It
Right?
is.
It sounds like something so simple, and it sounds like I'm not trying to be preachy, But like
You
we
could be
gotta
preachy,
we gotta
though.
get back into books.
Get back into books.
Seriously.
And away from the
off of
screens.
these
Get away from the
screens,
screens and get away from
these
TikTok and get into
get
books.
off of these
right? Because
phones.
like in that book is the message,
right.
right? And those messages that are in those books, somebody's trying to keep you from those messages.
Right.
1000%.
I definitely
They want to
agree.
give you the messages on these. They don't want you to
Right.
read the message in the books. Why is that? The Catcher in the Rye.
Why is that, Professor? Why?
I have my own theories, but that's another show, right?
You can tap in it real
Well, I
quick.
think that like if you know an educated population is a population that's going to question and challenge and push back, and they're seeing that it's kind of hitting like it wasn't just like Black and brown folks who were consciousness, like it's seeping into the general population, and it's disconcerting to those the power to be, and they just want to prevent it and stop it as much as they can.
Yeah. And what's really weird is just the parallels to some of especially the dystopian.
The dystopian, yeah.
It's very alarming how many parallels to what we're experiencing in society today. Like I can think of like 3 books right now.
Handmaid's Tale, right?
Yeah, Handmaid's
I
Tale.
mean, it's so close.
Parable of the Sower.
People don't even they don't even know how close it is.
Yeah, wild.
And then that we just went through like a pandemic, right? Like where like all bets are off. Like things could have really gone, bad, poorly. And that, I don't know, it doesn't seem like we've learned the lessons about what it means to like progress as a society.
Yeah.
What we learn, I'm not sure. It's the
What
same.
did we learn? That is
I mean, that's a
question.
good question. What we learn? I think we're still asking the question. What
I think
we learned.
I think we're all still trying to figure that out. I think it was a period of enlightenment. If we're talking about what happened during lockdown and COVID and something, I think it was a period of enlightenment for many people. I think a lot of people went looking for answers for all sorts of things that they probably weren't so focused on before because they couldn't focus on it, and then they had time.
Right. Yeah.
But how do we get people interested? How do we get people interested in learning about not only their history, but these other creators who are wanting to shape our future, and telling these fantastic stories?
I mean, it's tricky because not only are they banning books, they're like really bad mouthing and trashing education. You know what I mean? Like it's like as an educator, as the child of an educator, right? It's like it breaks my heart to see how disparaging education is treated on every level. I talk about like the pandemic and a mistake that I think the education field made was that educators, especially K through 12, should have been looked at as like first responders, right? Like 'cause they were like, right? And so I think those two things go together. You break people away from books, you break people away from education, you give them things to distract them and to tell them that this, right? Like you can control the masses.
Foolishness.
Yeah.
Too. Nothing that's helping people to grow or to learn anything.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like some of it is compelling. I think that I'm still not on TikTok. I'm still not on TikTok. I don't know why.
Okay.
I
just
don't
I'm not.
I am, but I work in advertising.
Right.
So I
You have to be on
You
it.
have to
Right.
be,
And I
yeah.
feel compelled sometimes because I am a sociologist and I want to know what's going on in the world. But like, I don't need any more distractions. I got a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel. And I'm sure I'll probably give in at some point in time or whatever. But it's like, I think it's hard for people to read books now.
Yeah. I mean, I will say
Absolutely.
that they're like, as a reader, a lot of books do come up in my algorithm, book talk. And I find quite a bit of books that I'm interested in, in that sphere, like more so kind of, romance books I'm interested. That's the side of TikTok I'm on. And I do learn about quite a bit of independent authors and, authors that might not have the big reach to kind of be in the main big bookstores, that I would be interested in and want to support. So I do learn quite a bit about books on there. And then also just current events and news in general, like just a lot of things that a lot of it, unfortunately, is very alarming that is just not getting the coverage in the media is definitely all over TikTok, and you'll see it depending on what corner, what you're engaging with, you'll get served up more of it. So, I mean, I think there's value in it, and I think it can be leveraged even with younger people, get them engaged and interested, through TikTok and, kind of use that as a teaching tool, but it shouldn't be like the main thing. And, the screens are just kind of too dominant, in a lot of young people's lives in a way that I think is
It's
concerning.
unadulterated, right? Like that's the part that's
Just ask something really quick. I know I have issues with reading. I don't read like I used to, which makes me sad. So reading Binti and wanting to read more of it,
awesome.
Thank you. You know what I mean? So I don't watch a lot of TV. I try my best to get into shows that they recommend, my other friends recommend. Nothing is
hitting
just
for you?
not a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like I want to read again.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see all these authors and start reading again. But my question is, what we just talked about as far as teens or young adults or whatever on these screens, you as an educator and you as a book reader, do you know if young kids do read? Like, do they pick up a book and read because they just want to read a book?
I think young kids do read. My friends' kids read.
I would say my friends' kids read as well. I can't speak for the
Are we talking about teenagers or preteens?
They're preteen, teenagers, college students. They read.
They read books. Okay.
They read books. They had a good foundation of reading. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know about the limitations on screen time or whatever, but like, I think a good deal of my friends' kids read. My nieces and nephews read.
That's
you
great.
know, they're avid readers. Some of them. You know what I mean? So,
do you do like I do, and like whenever there's like a birthday or a holiday, like buy a book?
Books, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I give books. Like they got a little older, I start giving money or checks or whatever, but I give books to, I gave, my godson, Ta-Nehisi Coates' book when he turned like 16. He may not have read it, but I gave it to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of my friends, he is, a colleague of mine, Orthodox Jew, wrote a book about being in the Orthodox Jew community. And one of my friends, a good friend of mine from college, his daughter is very, like, she's Jewish and a Judaism or whatever. I gave her his book or whatever. That's like, to me, that's the greatest gift I can give. It's the greatest gift that was given to me. You know what I mean? Like books and knowledge. So that's what I try to give.
Yeah, I think the first book that I was ever given by a friend of my mom's was a science fiction book. It was Ray Bradbury's.
Oh yeah, sure.
Illustrated Man.
Yeah.
And I read that book. I don't even know how many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can put the right book in somebody's hands.
Oh yeah.
It'll change your life.
Yeah, my name is Sheldon, and so when I was a kid, like they would give me Sheldon Silverstein books. The Giving Tree and all that. And some of them are, and so that piqued my curiosity into one of the things, many things. Yeah, I read a lot of Sidney Sheldon books too when I was a kid. I read everything.
Yeah.
I read everything. Yeah.
Good.
What do you want to hit before?
Yeah, so it's today is this month is Pride, right? This is Pride Day, last Sunday in June. That's how you always remember. And I was just wanting to ask you guys if there's any material, books, film that you want to sort of acknowledge or recognize in the spirit of quest culture from LGBT folk or LGBT folk of color in particular. I will bring up something. I don't know why I'm using this because there's a lot of stuff out there, and it is not. I'm just gonna put it out there, right? It is what is it called? I wrote it down. The Knock at the Cabin Door. Did you see that?
Knock at the Cabin Door. Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I really love this movie. Did you guys see it?
No.
It's M. Night Shyamalan?
It's an M. Night Shyamalan
I love that
film.
movie. What?
I just loved it. The
It was
characters
surprising how much I liked it.
the characters are a gay couple.
Mm-hmm.
They have a adopted Asian daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and they are on vacation in the woods,
Mhm.
and they are faced with some
Impossible
adversity.
choice.
Yeah, and I just thought it was a brilliant story.
Yeah.
It's one of the best M. Night. I can never say his
M. Night
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan
Yeah.
films that I've seen in a long
In
time.
a long time.
Mm.
Yeah.
I loved all the if you know any of the characters, the guy in there, he was in an HBO TV show.
Mindhunters. Was he one? Wasn't he?
No, not
he on
that one.
Netflix,
This one's like an LGBT show. What
Okay.
was it called? I can't remember the name of it, but I'll get it later. But anyway, he's a good actor, gay actor, young man. I just loved that film and what it represented, and
I thought that was a great film.
good and evil, and it's just like
Yeah.
really amazing. So that's my
It was
choice.
really well told.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I thought this movie was one of the best love stories.
What are you gonna say?
Brokeback Mountain.
She took mine.
I mean, like Brokeback Mountain is a beautiful film. I mean,
Oh
it's
my! I thought
heartbreaking.
It was
It's
heartbreaking.
a heartbreaking
It's-
film.
but it was also beautiful
It was
to me.
It's a
beautifully
beautiful film
done,
too,
beautifully
yeah.
shot.
I mean, it is heartbreaking
It's
beyond.
Yeah,
It's heartbreaking.
yeah.
And when it came out, I saw it, and Heath Ledger came to for a meet
Did
and greet
he?
afterwards. Yeah, it
That's
was
Wow.
pretty amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, that's you fall in love with the characters.
yes,
Right.
It takes you out of that constriction you have about thinking about
Exactly.
people and their relationship and how people should be. And once you do that, you fall into this movie, and it just
Mhm.
takes you. It
Yeah.
is such a
does.
great film. You took mine.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
And I always love like a backdrop, a southern backdrop, because my family's
Yeah.
from the South.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
just it was just beautiful
Oh yeah,
all around.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I can't think of anything in particular, but I just will say, just in general, what I think is so great about futuristic works and like science fiction and some Afrofuturism is that you see characters of all components, all sexualities, all genders, and it's very fascinating. I believe like some of the characters in some of N.K. Jemisin's work might be queer in some way, but yeah, I just really appreciate that you can kind of see just like the breadth of humanity, and then just things that authors invent that I hadn't necessarily thought of, like captured in their works.
Okay, great. What about you? You got
Amazing.
Got another one?
I'm sorry.
I'll choose one I'll throw one out for you.
I mean, you might have to throw one out for me. I was referencing. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday.
What's that?
The video game one with Anthony.
Oh,
really good
wow.
episode, yeah.
What was it?
Black Mirror.
The Black Mirror
Oh,
episode,
okay.
season 5, episode 1, something Vipers.
Fighting Vipers.
Fighting.
Fighting Vipers. I don't think that. Anyway,
Striking Vipers.
Striking Vipers,
That's
right, with Anthony Mackie,
Anthony
right?
Mackie.
If you don't know about Black Mirror, I'm sure if you're like watching the show,
You're watching the show.
or friends
you
with
should
any of
know
us, you
about
probably know about Black Mirror.
Right.
But Black Mirror is a sci-fi anthology that's on Netflix. It's been on there for 5 years. We were talking about the various episodes, right?
Yeah.
And
We talked about
we're
Shen
talking about-
Dove, and then we went to
Right.
that one. Yeah.
And so for me, one of my favorite episodes from that series, although there are a lot of really good ones, is the Striking Vipers episode, right? Which sort of transcends the idea around sexuality and
Mm-hmm.
Gender.
gender and sexuality and
video
gender
games.
and
Yeah.
it's
And video games.
and it's also Anthony Mackie is in it, and
Yeah.
so it's such a great great
Right.
episode, like, and very courageous, I think.
This second week in a row, you mentioned Anthony Mackie.
I'm not crushing on him though.
hopefully-
No, I'm serious.
Are you sure?
Like, I'm not really. He's not my type, but he's good. I like him as an actor.
You can
know?
have a crush against type.
Yeah.
I don't
Exactly.
Yeah, I do crush against type, but he's not it though.
Okay.
Okay.
And he,
Wow.
Sorry, Anthony
That's
Mackie.
fair.
I love you as an actor.
Wow.
But
Please come
not
on
that
the
you're gonna
show.
watch this, but if you have free tickets,
He will definitely watch
go to
it.
Captain America. I'll go.
I don't have a type,
But I'm not
so
crushing you.
You have an open invite.
I'm
Yeah.
open.
Anytime. Sit right next to Dana right here on the
Anthony
set.
Mackie, I feel like he was in Brother to Brother, another LGBT like sort of classic, right? About the life of Langston Hughes. I feel like he was in it.
Oh,
Oh,
Am
I just
wrong?
thought of something. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was struggling to think of a film.
Yeah.
But the film about Bayard Rustin.
Oh, that was great. That
Yeah.
recently on Netflix,
Yeah.
right? It was called Rustin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Domingo, what's his name? Full name. Why am I so
Coleman?
bad with I'm
Yeah.
so bad with names today.
Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, Coleman Domingo.
Okay.
He was in again, sci-fi reference. He's a Fear the Walking Dead for a long
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Great on that,
He's really good
right?
in that.
Yeah.
He plays Rustin. I
Mhm.
think did he win an award for that or what?
I think so.
I feel like he
think he
won an
did.
award for it.
Yeah.
He's great. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's amazing. And he was great in Rustin, right?
Yeah, he was. And that's just, Bayard Rustin is just like such an interesting historical figure that you absolutely should look up if you don't know.
That people don't really know about,
Yeah.
right? Architect of the Civil Rights Movement, or
Yeah.
march on Washington, really,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
Nice.
And had to be pushed aside because of his sexuality.
Mhm.
Yes.
I actually wrote a
Rustin,
piece.
go check it out.
Yeah, I wrote a piece about him in the Griot a few
Oh,
years
okay.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
Very cool.
so
One of my history teachers told me about him like in high school.
yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know about him.
Yeah.
People of color.
Well, you do now.
Yeah, they know. They know now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
Anything else? Any final thoughts, or should we?
Yeah, I think we are over. But this has been great. I just wanted to say, I think, just for the record, they're making another I Am Legend. It's supposed to be a continuation. I'm not sure how.
Okay.
How
If
can
you
it
saw the
be?
first
I
one,
didn't see the first.
I don't know how they're gonna make the
Sorry,
second
Will
one,
Smith, I haven't seen
but
it.
but I believe what's his name is going to be in it.
Who?
Michael B. Jordan. And
Oh, yeah, I know that.
think
I heard
did
that.
see that
So
headline.
should I watch the first one? Tell me.
Yeah.
I should
Yeah.
watch
I
it.
think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
read the book.
Okay.
Well, wait.
I would read the book first.
Wait,
Okay.
why do you want him to do either or? I mean, why not? Why? Because the
No,
book
I
is
mean,
nothing. The book is nothing like the movie. If
Because
you're
it's-
trying to
because
watch
it's-
it because of Michael B. Jordan,
because
then-
No, I
No,
mean
no,
just
the
the
first
one,
one.
Mike,
First one.
the first film,
One with
yeah,
Will Smith.
with Will Smith.
no,
Because there was a moment where I just kind of like stopped watching Will Smith films. I
Yeah.
just thought they were like
Okay.
not
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah,
so-
but the reason I'm saying you should read the book is because, for me, the book is better, and the ending is different.
Okay.
So as you're watching the film, there's things you'll notice and see, and you judge whether you think they made the correct decision and actually
I
how
guess
they
that
made
was
it.
my
How they
point.
not.
Like, why would
Okay.
you want him to do both? Because
Yeah,
I thought
to
he was
compare.
interested in the-
And by the way, there's a Hancock 2 coming out. Is it next
Yeah.
year?
Is it
Is
really?
it this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
With-
he's
with
just
Will Smith?
they're just
He's
running
trying
back
to
everything.
revitalize
They're
himself
trying to
for 10
revitalize-
years.
They're trying to,
Yeah.
because they're trying to knock out.
He's
this,
on that ban for 10 years, so that he,
Ah.
he's trying to get his
Trying to make
coins
people
up.
like him again.
I mean, he's not Army
Wait, what did
Hammer,
he do?
right? Like he didn't
No.
say he like ate people, right? Because
No.
he's also on the comeback trail too, right? Like,
Yeah.
Is
how
he?
hilarious he is! Yeah,
he's trying. He's trying.
Yikes.
They're super wealthy.
Like I
I'm sure.
really didn't.
I'm sure we'll
eat
see him in something
anybody.
very
Yeah.
soon because he's super
Yeah, well,
I'll buy there. All right.
that was a
We're
weird
over.
note. We
That was-
didn't
that was-
we don't want to end on Army Hammer. Sorry, Army Hammer.
Rich. Good job, buddy. Good job.
Yeah. Anyway,
Shen, tell everybody where they can find you if they're looking for you.
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Shen Dove, or on my blog, therootedandwell.com.
Okay.
Oh, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Dana Deet.
Professor.
Sheldon Applewhite. I'm one of 2 in the world on Instagram, and on X. I guess you can find me at Dr. S. Applewhite.
Nice.
Oh, you use X?
I got rid of my ex.
Not really.
Let's not forget that part.
Yeah, just
Edit that out.
You'll
Brenda.
edit that out. Yeah.
It is what it is.
I don't want any side eyes. Yeah. Like, oh, what's
I'm Brendon Hamilton, Be Music Maker on Instagram and any other socials. But thanks, guys. Thanks for, as the professor would say, the podcast assembled, and it was very great.
podcast is
So thank you guys for being here. Shen, thanks again for blessing us with your
Thanks
time,
for
and
having
passion
me.
for having us here on the set. And thank you for tuning in to the Quest Culture Podcast. If you have any questions, you can always put them in the comments. If you have anything you would like us to see or read or comment on for the next show, let us know. Happy Pride.
Happy
Take care.
Pride.
Till
Happy Pride.
Till next time.
Second.